Hello, this is Brian Green, the Columbia College Librarian, and in this tutorial we're going to go over some of the differences of scholarly, credible, and other types of sources and how to distinguish them. So let's jump right into it. A few things you need to keep in mind when you're trying to evaluate any sort of information is one, what's the purpose? Is the goal to inform? Is the goal to entertain? Is the goal to mislead? If you can figure out the goal of the information that you're using, you can go a long way towards deciding whether or not it's credible or not. Another thing to keep in mind is it's important to figure out who the author is and what their motivations may be. And that can take a little bit of work, but keep your eye out for the author and why they're publishing whatever it is that you're reading or using. There are a few other things that I think are really important to keep in mind, and we'll cover those as we go through them. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up a scholarly article. I'm going to click on this tab here, and it's one that I found in our EBSCO database. And scholarly information is written by and for scholars, and it's a way to communicate the results of a study or surveys that were completed, something that's gone through a fairly formal process, and often we use the terms peer-reviewed or academic journals. Those are sometimes used interchangeably. Peer-reviewed actually refers to a specific editorial process where other experts in the field review the article before it's published. And so there are a couple ways that you can identify these when you come across them. One is that because of their purpose, they're designed to inform and convey information to other scholars and experts in the field. They can look a little dry. So you'll see in this example that I have here, this is a very common type of scholarly publication. You start off with the title. You often see an abstract, just a summary of the piece below there, and then it goes into the rest of the article below. If you scroll all the way down to the bottom, I'll try and do that quickly, you'll see a list of references. If you don't see a list of references, that's a big red flag that the article you're looking at is probably not a scholarly publication. The use of references, citations throughout the article is a key indicator of a scholarly publication. A couple other things you could do to check and see how credible it is one, think about where you found the information that you're using. So I found this in one of the library's databases. The library has someone, primarily me, who goes through and selects materials that we're going to make available. And I'm constantly evaluating the different sources that we have for students and trying to find the best possible things. Sometimes I make mistakes, so I'm definitely not saying that everything you find on the library's website is 100% accurate. There isn't a source or that you can go and find that is always 100% of the time perfect. It just doesn't exist. So no matter where you find it, you always want to think through some of the different components of evaluating the credibility of a source. But if you find it in a reputable place, such as at a library, if it's one of the sources that's listed there, it has a better chance of being credible. So where it's located is something to keep in mind. And also, like I said, keeping an eye on what it looks like. If there's all manner of advertisements and things all over it, then it might have a different purpose than you originally thought. Another thing you could do is check where the thing was published. So I found it in our EBSCO database, but it was actually published someplace else. If you look up top here, you can see the name of the journal where it was published, Journal of Contingencies and Crisis Management. And you could just do something as simple as going and doing a Google search for that and seeing what you can learn about it. So I can see here it's coming up as part of it's a Wiley publication. And if I click on that, I could, do some digging, and I would learn that Wiley is a respected publisher in academics, and you find them doing a lot of very well-regarded publications. But it can be an excellent idea to just do a little Google search for the author or the place where the thing is published that you're looking at, and that can give you some clues about how reputable it is. Okay, so I'm going to close that there. And the next thing I'm going to go to is an article I found just doing a Google search in the Telegraph. So the Telegraph is kind of a general name, but it's somewhat common for publications, for newspapers. I can do a little searching, see if there is an About Us page on this website. I didn't see one at the top. I don't see an obvious one down here at the bottom, so I could go to their homepage and see where it's published. I could do a Google search, see what I could learn about them. But let's just take a look at it. This looks like a very different publication than the one we just looked at previously. First of all, I see a number of ads on it, and I also see some information about when it was published. This one was published back in 2009. I believe the scholarly article we looked at was published in 2011. And so for a topic that such as climate change or sea level rise like we're talking about here, there's a lot of information that's come to light since both 2009 and 2011. So if I was using either one of those sources, I would want to keep that in mind and make sure I also use some newer information. But so when I go through here, I can see that this looks like it is an article it's not scholarly. I don't see any citations in it. They are citing, there are some quotes from people in there, but if I come all the way down to the bottom, I don't see a list of references or works cited. I see some links to some other odd articles and so forth. I see a list over here of paid content. These are all things that are making me think this website, this newspaper, is designed to not just inform but also to entertain. I get very much a sense that they're trying to entertain me with this piece and try and get me to click on some ads potentially. Just because that's the case doesn't mean it's bad, but it does make me, or give me pause. It makes me think about where it's coming from and what the motives might be of both the publisher who published it and the person that they're citing in here, this Dr. Mornay. Right? So I'd want to keep that in mind. So I would classify this this piece of information as potentially for entertainment, but it's a popular source. It's not a scholarly source that I might use if I was looking for a scholarly source for a paper. Okay, a couple other things we'll take a look at. I'm going to jump over here to this tab, and this is a CQ Researcher article. This is one we found in one of the library's databases. CQ Researchers is one of my favorite resources, and it provides thorough reports on all sorts of different topics. So this is a report that they've put out just a couple weeks ago, February 2018, and it's on the topic of rising seas. And the whole report is here. I can scroll down on it. I can see that there is a footnote section. That's what they call their citations. So there are citations, which I think that's a good sign. Also the new date, that's also an excellent sign. I can click on this little about the author. I can learn a little bit about who this person is, and potentially go and do a Google search, get some more information about them. But when I look at this, it looks pretty different from that initial scholarly article that we looked at first, right? So it's set up to be a little more visually appealing. If I read through it, I see that it is well written, but it's not geared towards an audience of experts. It's also geared towards students and just people who are casually interested in the topic. So again, that doesn't make it bad. It just makes it a different type of source. So we have this one kind of falls in the middle. We have some things to balance. So there are some very positive things about this source. It cites all the information that it's using. We found it in the library. We don't see a lot of ads all over the place. By the same token, it is or does appear to be written towards a more general audience. So I would categorize this one as a credible source, but not a scholarly source, in the sense that it's not a scholarly or peer-reviewed publication. Okay. So those are a few different sources that you might come across, and a few different things to think about in terms of determining how credible they are and what types of source they are. There's one more I want to point out, because I know a lot of people encounter this, and this is Wikipedia. Wikipedia is a website that you'll encounter when you're on the internet. It shows up pretty much for almost any search you do, because it's a huge encyclopedia, online encyclopedia. And it's actually a resource that I like a lot. I like it because it is so big and you can find some basic information about a lot of topics. However, it has some downfalls, some of which are fairly well known. So the big one is that I'm looking at this sea level rise page. I could click on this edit this page up at the top, and I could go right in and change what's on this page here. I could say something that I knew was intentionally false, or something that I wasn't sure about. I could hit publish changes down here, and right away those things would show up. Now Wikipedia may well go back, and somebody else on Wikipedia may fix it, and in my experience they do fix those things, egregious errors, pretty quickly, but not all the time. And if it's a more minor error, something that's a little less well known, there's a greater chance that it might last there a long time. So while there is a lot of interesting information on Wikipedia, simply because it's so easy to edit and you're therefore really unsure about who the author is of whatever it is you're reading, that puts its credibility in doubt. So you have to be very, very careful when you're using Wikipedia articles. And really the Wikipedia articles themselves are almost never appropriate for doing scholarly research. There are a couple things you can do to make good use of Wikipedia articles. One of them is come down to the references section here. So they do have references, much like scholarly articles. And oftentimes these links and the further reading links in here, sometimes I find that they do go to credible sources, but you'll need to go to those sources and evaluate them on their own. See who the author is, see what it looks like, see what information it cites, do some Googling to see if you can find out a little bit about its reputation, decide what its purpose is, and who the author is. So if you keep those ideas in mind, I think you'll have a lot of success helping to figure out the types of information you're using, whether or not it's credible, and whether you should be using it in the context, such as for a college research paper or something else. You can decide whether it's appropriate for that context. Okay, my name is Brian Green. I'm the Columbia College librarian. This has been a little tutorial about determining what scholarly and general interest and credible information is. And please come and contact me if you have any questions. My phone number is on the library's homepage. You can just stop by the Columbia College Library. You can shoot me an email. It's my last name, b@yosemite.edu. Thanks for your time. See you in the library.